You know, there's a lot of great OU podcasts, but there's only one where the horns are always down. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Horns Down Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Horns Down Podcast is back, up and running. You already know who's here. Wait a minute, we got one more person coming. We got a lineup tonight, ladies.
Oh,
So we got PG in here. All right, we got Jason from Hall of Fame Podcast. Got PG from at the PG Show. And then we got my guy Jay from Unfair Sports, and then we have Mr. Justin Couz Walker on the show from Couz's Corner. So
checking him out, throwing him down like a veteran.
Right.
Yeah, obviously throwing those horns down way up there in West Virginia, pretty much. So that's how we're gonna rock it tonight. But hey, while we're here, while we're doing our intros or whatnot, everybody just go down the line and just tell everybody where they can find you and your channel.
Jason Watkins, Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. You can find us on YouTube at CFB-pod or at hofmedia.us, and always on Twitter as well. But that's the easiest way to find us.
Justin Couz Walker on Couz's Corner. It's spelled Couz''S on YouTube. Cover West Virginia, the Big 12, a lot of college football conference realignment. I'm also on Twitter at Couz206. A little bit on Instagram at Couz's Corner. If you want to check me out there as well.
If y'all ain't watching me, I don't know what's going on, but y'all can find me at the PG Show because y'all know it. We're talking recruiting, and we're gonna drop another interview tomorrow with another recruit. So,
well, y'all know me, Jay, Unfair Sports. You can search me on YouTube as well as Twitter, and you can find us wherever podcasts to download, listen to. Just search for the Sooner or Later Sports Show if you want Sooner content. Unfair Sports if you want everything else. And so, Chris, as usual, thanks for having us.
Appreciate you guys for coming on. Before we jump deeper into this, everybody stop what you're doing, like the video, subscribe, all of that. And then not only just to this channel, but like everybody else's content, subscribe to their channels as well. We're all a community. We're all in this together. These are like brothers, and we about to jump into this. So, Couz, if you don't mind, we're going to talk a little OU first before we kind of spread the wheel, all right?
No worries.
And so what I want to talk about is year 2, right? We already, all of you guys have basically been just, doing tremendous work on this, just talking about everything from camp notes to all of this. So we're going to kind of try to give you guys an update as far as what we know thus far, some things that are happening, some things that are not happening, or whatever the case may be. So let's just jump into this. So first I want to say that I have a really, really close friend that is, let's just say he's really close to the Oklahoma State. So an Okie Light friend. And
An Okie Light friend.
Yeah, I'm just going to call him that, somebody who's really close, maybe on the anyways. So basically what I'm trying to say is that we went out for a couple of drinks or whatnot, and we were talking. And I just said, hey, man, look, what do you think about OU and all these transfers and everything that they've gotten in, this recruiting class? And he said, hey, OU's going to be like they're going to be day and night. He said they're going to be day and night. That's how different they're going to be. He said, you guys didn't just go and get some transfers out of the portal. You went and got some dogs. He said the D line is going to improve tremendously. And this is before we even went and got Dejon Terry. So he was like, hey, man, the sky can be the limit for your defense. Your secondary wasn't the problem last year. It was just the D line. You didn't really have that much of an edge rush or pass rush. So besides some other boring tidbits he dropped about OK State, I thought that was really interesting to hear that, basically from behind enemy lines, basically saying, hey, that's my observation of OU. So, but that, I just want to kind of jump into this and say, hey, year 2 is here. Campus in full effect. We are right around the corner from football. We're literally 3 Saturdays away from having college football back, week 0 at least. I'm going to open up the floor. I'm going to go to you first, Jay, and just say, what have you heard about camp, man, and what are the vibes that you're getting from this year's team?
So vibe-wise, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing yet. And you'll understand me when I say it. The defense is looking elite. Secondary's dang near winning everything. Defensive line is cooking. Linebackers all over the place. There's actual battles for starting positions between veterans and some second years and freshmen and the two deep. It's just battling everywhere. I don't know if that reflects great on the defense or bad on the offense. While at the same time, the offense is looking crisp. The offensive line looks like we're getting back to the Joe Moore days of 2018. And 19, we're looking like we're competing. We're ready to compete for those awards again with Walter Rouse and Tyler Guyton being your bookends. Looks like we're showing what we used to be on the offensive side while also bringing back that old school Brent Venables defense, which I am so excited about. So far, the words have been plentiful and exciting. Now it's all about execution week 1 through week 5. Then we'll know what we look like.
Mm-hmm. PG, we'll go to you first, and we'll go to you next.
Yeah, so a name that you're continuing to hear even outside of the spring is Josiah Wagner, which is, I'm not going to lie, not the name you would thought you would hear. So when people want to think of 5'9" and 5'10" guys on the recruiting trail, I want you to think back about Josiah Wagner because he's going to be vying for playing time this season. And I think I saw the Colorado Buffaloes secondary. I think they held a sign up the other day talking about a no-fly zone or something like that. Jay, I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah, I did.
Oklahoma literally might have a no-fly zone this offseason or this season, upcoming season, based off what we're hearing in the offseason. The secondary just, I mean, this literally might be one of the best secondaries I think we've seen in Oklahoma history.
Jason?
Ooh, those are tall praises. But if you look at what they did in the portal and what they did in recruiting, it doesn't surprise me at all. In fact, Josiah Wagner, having been at the All-American game and seeing what he did down there, I mean, he was popping. He was popping then. And then, of course, we heard in spring about that they'd already nicknamed him Bulldog and things like that. This is one of those guys along with Makari Vickers, and I think we've been talking about Samuel Omosillo a lot coming into this, that these guys are going to make it hard to keep them off the field, I think, and that's a good problem to have. I know you do have some veterans in there that maybe you're hoping that they're more ready and that they're the ones that are going to kind of take that leadership role. But I think once you get guys like that, and of course we don't want to forget Peyton Bowen, but yeah, when you get guys like that on the field, you may not see them come off the field much after that. And I think that's obviously a good problem to have going into the SEC next year, but something you have to take into account with that offense. I would say that, look, early in camp, the defense is going to gel. On most teams, the defense is going to look better first because you've got a lot of new receivers in the room. You've got, some guys that is going to be some changes. I know that we talked a little bit on Jay's show about the offensive line needs to kind of gel together to kind of, and when you've got a bunch of dogs on that defensive line, don't make it hard on them. And that's probably a good thing. So if you're getting your best competition from the guys right across the locker room from you, that's probably a good thing. I would tell you that I'm not too worried about that. I think that once you get into the games, you're going to, be game planning for somebody. And, when the defense sees you every day, it's easy for them to kind of dissect what you're doing, but, is in comparison. But I think that this offense showed a year ago that it was top 15, even with as bad as everything else went. I'm not too concerned about that much.
No, I'll step in before we go to Couz. I'll just say this. I like the approach that they're taking, not necessarily the Tom Herman before we're about to play LSU approach, the death count. But I like the approach as far as just kind of let's ease into it. We're going to get into it. We know what we can do. We know what we have. I just think that the confidence is back. I think that you're vibing at the right time. Going back to the spring game, man, you saw it wasn't just effort, but you saw talent and you saw a lot of athleticism with ranginess all over the field. And so I think that the fact of the matter is that, hey, you have competitive depth. There goes that term right there, right? You have a guy like Pearson and Key who are going to have a hell of a battle. You have guys like Dejon Terry who's going to have a hell of a battle with guys like Kelly, Couz, who are in their second year, of this defense. So it's really interesting. Couz, I'll go to you. And I guess the way that I'll phrase this question to you is not necessarily say, hey, how are y'all going to shape up against us? Are y'all scared or whatever? But as one of the teams that beat us last year, kind of going into the season, looking across the board and looking at the rest of the Big 12, what have you been impressed with? What have you been kind of hesitant or reluctant? What have you been impressed with and what have you not been impressed with as far as this offseason for OU kind of going into the season?
Oh, I think it's just like you guys have talked about, the work they've been able to do in the portal. Obviously, the recruiting has been magnificent for 24, which I know won't affect me necessarily as a Big 12 guy. But, I did a video, I don't know, early on in my channel, probably over a year ago. I think Brent Venables was a home run hire for Oklahoma, and I think the guy will compete in the SEC as an under. I was trying to think the best way to put it, but I think he'll do more than compete in the SEC. I think he'll have them at the top of the conference, near the top of the conference. And so I'm just impressed with the staff that they put together, man. To be honest with you, and the work they've done. I think they lost Thad Turnipseed, if I'm not mistaken, didn't they? I don't know how much that'll hurt him because I know that guy was really good at what he did. But other than that, they scare me. No doubt about it. I was kind of hated to see them on the schedule this year, to be honest. We avoided the Longhorns, but we still have the Sooners on the schedule. So
now we're gonna get to y'all, but I just got one question. It's just yes or no. Is Green still there? Is he the starter this year?
He's still here. Not sure if he's the starter yet.
Oh, okay. Hey, we got to get to that. We got to get to
Good. I want to.
So I was gonna say that kind of jumping down to one of my last points about year 2 for us. Here's some players of interest. All right, so we'll go down the line and you guys just kind of tell me who's the most interesting player out of this group. So I have Dejon Terry, Ethan Downs, Justin Harrington, and Deshaun McCullough. And the reason why I listed those 4 players is because you got Dejon Terry who is coming in and he has all the hype in the world about him. He put a lot of pressure on himself saying he was going to be an All-American. You have Ethan Downs who, honestly, he's in a dogfight. He should start as the guy with the most experience. Well, some of the most experience with this defense, but Trace Ford, Bothroyd, PJ Adebawara, R. Mason Thomas, guys like that. We could go on. They're talking about stripling a lot too. There's some dogs out there, man, on that D line. And we've heard that Ethan Downs has dropped weight, but you're still just kind of like, what are we going to really get from him? We know what we got from him last year. Bits and pieces, it was good, but at the same time, it wasn't up to, I would say, the normal standard. I don't know. But then I look at Justin Harrington and Deshaun McCullough, and I say both of those guys are going to be on the field. And I am absolutely excited to see Justin Harrington in a defense that fits him. And I want to say he's about a year and a half, 2 years, almost 2 years removed from the ACL. If you go back and watch his film at his JUCO, you're just saying this dude is freaky. There's no way that he's on campus this long. He should be going to the league. He has all the intangibles. So with that being said, I'll pass it. Jay, let's go to you first.
Go to PG first.
Right.
I'm trying to decide. I'm trying to decide. My guy's not on here. And he's never talked about either. He's never talked about.
Okay.
Shane Witter.
Ooh.
Okay. Shane Witter's healthy, and he might be one of the fastest linebackers in that room.
Huh.
No doubt. But what else?
I'm just saying, he's never talked about. He's a guy that can pop off. But if we're picking from your list, I would definitely say it's Deshaun Terry, just because the defensive line, I think, is what anchors your defense, and I think what he's going to be able to provide to the Oklahoma in terms of a leadership role, and just from a pure raw get to the quarterback, get in the backfield. DeJohn Terry is going to bring all of that. So you look at DeJohn Terry, I think he's probably going to be one of the bigger pieces you've gotten out of the transfer portal. That's going to be a crucial piece into how this defense goes out there and succeeds this season.
Jason, we'll come back to you last, Jay.
Yep.
I tell you, man, how can you not say it's Deshaun McCullough? I mean, what we saw in the freaking spring game and what we continue to see, him putting on bulk and speed. I think he's going to be a wrecking machine. We're talking about a freshman All-American a year ago at Indiana. He comes in. We hadn't really talked much about his little brother yet, but I know that he's just getting here. But I tell you, I feel like this is a guy that can move all over the field. He could be the cheetah. He can, you can play him at linebacker. You can play him at defensive end a lot. I think that you're going to end up finding him in a lot of these little positional battles. Again, I feel like these are guys that if once you get them on the field, you're going to have to want to keep them on the field, and more times than not. So I think the main thing that I see from all this is that it is night and day different on the defensive side, and that's something that we couldn't have said for a long time. When you start talking about this stuff. We've been waiting for a defense like this in Norman for what?
Since 2011.
I was going to say at least
12 years.
Yeah, 11, 12 years. So to have this many guys I think it was maybe on your stream the other day, Jay, that somebody in the comments, and I think we have one of the smartest audiences that come to our shows, man. But they were saying, hey, we're 2 and 3 deep at all these spots, and which is a great problem to have. I mean, I think that, we hadn't talked about Devon Sears a whole lot. We haven't talked about, Bothroyd. I mean, the guy was a freaking game wrecker at Wake Forest all the time, and to me, as much as I love Ethan Downs, I don't know how much time he's going to get. I think that, because he had a hard time getting to the quarterback a lot last year, not to say he couldn't have improved as well, but if you're not getting home and then they put somebody else in that does, preseason first team or not, I don't see how you get him on the field a whole lot, unless you move him like we've talked about. And I don't know that that's the thing.
So I'm going to go the opposite of everybody on these transfers and not go on the defensive side of the ball, even though Reggie Pearson's probably going to be the most impactful. I'm just saying.
There's another
one. Y'all heard, I put like the, and I'll talk Pearson real quick, but I want to talk about Andrell Anthony as well. But Pearson comes here, and the one thing I think that jumped out to me with him is that not only with him playing at Wisconsin, he played at Tech. At Wisconsin, his freshman year, they were like a top 2 defense in the country. Like, they were ridiculously good, and they ran the Rex Ryan defense concept similar to that, so it's very complex. Right. And him coming here saying, man, the talent they had on there, I think they had like 5 people that got drafted off that defense to the NFL within the first like 4 rounds. He talked about how the talent here he feels like is better than it was there. And so, of course, that got everybody excited of the fact that, oh, wait, you're telling me that great defense you have there in the Big Ten at Wisconsin, you think the talent's better here, and those guys are in the league? Yeah, that's what he thinks. I'm like, it's going to be tough, but I think that he's probably going to be your biggest X factor, especially if they play him at Cheetah. Because, one of the reports coming out is that, not only McCullough and Harrington are, your basic Cheetah role, they're rotating Peyton Bowen as well as Reggie Pearson in there as well. So the mix of players you're going to see on the defensive side is going to be wild. And it appears that all of them can actually play. So
I feel like it's going to be like a vibe thing. Who's not only doing all that you need to do up front as a cheetah, but who is also able to cover that game? Who's having a good day covering, And I think that it won't take that long to figure that out.
The best part about that is with looking at McCullough as well as Harrington, they're huge. Like they're 6'4", 6'5" dudes.
I mean, these are some great honorable mentions right here. I mean, Woody, Gentry, Wagner, Dolby. I mean, I think I'm excited about Gentry the most, but I think Dolby is going to have a lot to say this year as well. And Wagner could be one of those guys that you see get a lot of time and do a lot of really good things. So with that being said, I'm not gonna leave my man Couz out. We're gonna switch it up a little bit off of the list that I sent everybody. We're gonna go to West Virginia. I want to know what's going on with this whole Green thing. There's no way coming into this season. I'm like, there's no way he cannot be the starter. I mean, I thought he was your guy.
Oh, you're on mute, Couz. Couz over there sneezing.
I had it muted while you guys were talking OU, so I didn't want to interrupt that.
You good? You good?
Thought I might learn something, but no. I mean, I honestly think he'll end up being the guy. I don't know if Brown is playing this just close to the vest and not wanting to let the cat out of the bag.
Yeah,
or if Nico is Nico Marchiol, our back, or last year's freshman backup, is actually truly in the hunt. There's a rumor coming out of Morgantown that Nico had been guaranteed some things to keep him around. So I don't know how true that is. I hope it's not true because I think Garrett Green's earned it, man. That cat balled out last year, and
yeah, he did.
And I don't and going into college, Penn State or State College is what I was trying to say. Going into State College week 1 with a freshman, probably not a good idea. So I think Garrett will end up being the guy at the end of the day, but he hasn't been named starter yet.
So my next question for you, and it was honestly, I mean, you saw the question, and you know I was going to go there. Is this going to be Neil Brown's last season, or is there still a little bit of life on the end of that?
I think there's life only because, 2 reasons. One, West Virginia is not really known for firing coaches. They've not done it in my lifetime. Even Dana didn't get fired; he just moved on.
Mm-hmm.
So, and 2, he has a really hefty buyout in his contract that I'm not sure we can afford without some major donor help.
Yeah.
So, for those 2 reasons, I think he'll have a fairly long leash. Now, if he goes in there and has another losing season, then he'll probably get fired. But I think it would take a losing season to get him fired, honestly. I think if he wins 6 or 7 games, he can keep his job.
Yeah. Are there expectations?
That's tough, right? Yeah. I mean, you start off with Pitt and Penn State, you know?
Yeah, it's not going to be easy, no. The only saving grace, and I say saving grace, and no disrespect to the new teams, but they should have 1 or 2 years of growing pains coming into a Power 5 league, and we play all 4 of them second half of the year.
Yeah.
But the problem is our schedule. We start the year with Penn State, which then we have our FCS opponent in Duquesne. Then we have Pitt. Then we play TCU and Texas Tech back to back. So we could conceivably be 1-4 at the beginning
Does he
of the
make
year.
it through? Does he make it through that if they go to 1-4?
A lot of fans say no, but I say yes because I just don't know that I don't know that West Virginia is going to fire a coach in the middle of the season, man. They're very conservative the way they do things there. The fan base will be screaming for his job. I can tell you that, but whether they'll actually pull the trigger or not, I don't know. So I don't know, man. It'll be interesting to see how it all unfolds.
Yeah, I mean I know that's something that I was really interested in. It was the simple fact of it could this be his last season because they've been hinting at it for quite a while now, and
we thought he'd be fired after last year, to be honest.
Yeah. I think everybody on this panel probably thought that he would be fired after last season, even after the beating OU and all the rest of that. I didn't see how he was going to make it because it just didn't sound like the vibes were good up there. And it's like you guys have had good competitive teams, but for whatever reason, it's just and don't get me wrong, I can't really say too much. Hell, we just had our worst season in however long it was, but it just seems like West Virginia, you thought that you guys were maybe a step or 2 away from at least competing for somewhere being in the middle of the pack to maybe being a surprise team that pops up on people.
Yeah, I mean, and we all thought that too. I mean, last year was on paper was supposed to be the most talented team he had. The problem he has not been able to retain talent. We lost a lot of talent and a lot of production through the transfer portal before last season, and it really decimated us, especially on defense and especially in the secondary. I mean, we were one of the worst pass defenses in the country last year. because our secondary was a lot of transfers, and unfortunately they didn't pan out. And now we've had several transfers this year too, not as many. And the guys we brought in, I think they were able to do more vetting on these guys than they were able to last year, because a lot of those guys last year left late in the process.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping that extended vetting means that they did a better job evaluating these guys for this season. And then too, a lot of those young guys that got thrown to the fire last year have experience now. We had some young guys that really weren't ready to play that had to. Mm-hmm. They got burned a lot, but it was trial by fire, right? And now they've been through it, and those guys are expected to all step up and maybe even start this year. So we should be better on the defensive side of the ball. But proof will be in the pudding, as they say.
Yeah. I keep forgetting about that. Jason, when does West Virginia play Penn State?
In week 3? Or no, the first game is Penn State, and then Pitt is second, right? Right.
Yeah, we go to Penn State week 1.
Man,
can y'all pull an upset for me, please?
Yeah,
awesome.
It's some big games across the board in the Big 12 early on. Mm-hmm. One that I would point out that I think is going to be definitely going to be a game that I'm watching that second week. Texas Tech hosts Oregon. I mean, that's going to tell us everything we need to know about both programs. If you're Oregon, are you serious, and are you really serious and ready to take that step into the national championship conversation? And if you're Texas Tech, can we actually believe the hype? Is the hype actually real about McGuire and what you're trying to do down there? So I think, there's a bunch of games that really tell us a lot, and they're happening early in the Big 12. Hell, Texas, are you really ready to take a step in the right direction? I don't care who the quarterback is. I don't care what problems Alabama may have or may not have. If you got to go down there and beat them. You go down there and beat them, then show us that you can do that. So I think in the Big 12, it's going to be really interesting early on, kind of what you get, because you got some really good games across the board early to honestly figure out kind of how these seasons are going to go. So with that, we're going to make a transition to some recruiting, and we're going to talk about obviously the two big ones that happened today with Caden Durham and then also Colin Simmons. So I'll start with obviously the first one that is more relevant to us or more geared towards us was Caden Durham. PG, I'll start with you. Did you bat an eye at this? Did this surprise you? Did this make you feel like, dang, we were betrayed, or how were you feeling? Run me through your process, man.
PG, how did you feel?
I mean, I didn't feel that bad because Oklahoma's running back room is so deep. But I mean, Jay can attest to this. I was literally texting him back and forth. I was actually talking to another player today, and they thought Caden Durham was going to come to Oklahoma. So in reality, I don't think anybody really knew what this kid was going to do. It seemed like from conversations, he didn't know what he wanted to do. It sounds like LSU is going to be the best fit for him, though, just because, I mean, this running back room is so deep, and like he can vie for a spot and things like that. I think the clear path for him to start and to play and do what he loves and run track and field, it's going to be at LSU. So not really too hurt about it because, if Oklahoma wants to go load up with 2 more running backs in 2025, there's a slew of guys out there they can go get. So not really too hurt.
Jay, I'll go with you.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I mean, of course, we've seen basically the indications that he was going to LSU, for the last couple of weeks. It's just more and more, everything was pointing in that direction. And for me, it was more of I get it. He wants to run track. He wants to try to get better. The sprint coach there is absurd. Let me see. One of my guys kind of pointed out how he ran track in the early 2000s at LSU, won a national championship running track, right? He was also on that 03 national championship team for LSU's football team that beat Oklahoma in the title. So he's been able to do both sides of it, compete in track as well as on the football field. So he kind of has an idea how to make it work. And so honestly, that's a good sell. It's no different than us selling baseball and football to Taylor Tatum. It made sense. Skip Johnson is the one that architected it because football schedule does not change. It is king. You don't shift football for anybody. And so because of that, track has to be creative. Baseball had to be creative, and he's got experience doing it. So, as much as I would have loved to have him, because I'm greedy. Even I said in my video, like I just want to hold on to hope because I'm a greedy person when it comes to that. I just didn't want the competition to get him, but I think he'll be fine. And especially in his interview, he mentioned that they told him that he'll be like a every down back, he'd be a 4-down back or whatnot.
Yeah,
I don't see that, but if they decide to use him like that, hey, more power to you. I mean, he could potentially be another Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Why not?
And I mean, that's a good thing because like what you just said there, I mean, they've produced NFL running backs at OSU at a high level. So,
Sure.
I mean, I don't think in terms of OU losing this, like you lost this to another team that develops running backs really well. This is no slight. It's not like you lost him to Missouri. You lost him to a top tier contender in the SEC almost every year, a team that's won, I think, 3 national championships in the last 3 decades. So one in each of the last 3 decades. And they put out running backs in the NFL. So
yeah, they do that. That's basically their MO is they've won 3 titles with 3 different coaches. And we only know that one of them is a good coach. That's enough said.
Hey, you know what? I think I would take 1 national championship every decade.
I mean, who wouldn't? I mean, like I'm saying, but coaches end up leaving. Only one of them did not leave because they needed to go. One left because he had aspirations and realized that that ain't for me. Well, more so the Miami Dolphins medical staff told him it wasn't for him. I digress. The rest of them, they didn't need to be in that position. So the program that's going to be successful, they know how to be successful, just not long term.
Jason,
resources. Yeah, and obviously LSU's got a lot of resources too, but I don't think it's any surprise it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. I mean, the fact that when you look at the Oklahoma running back room, we've been saying it a lot on every show here, is that it's as deep as anybody in the country, maybe the best in the country, and it continues to add powerful and big-time recruits. We got the number 1 recruit coming in in Taylor Tatum already for this coming up cycle, beating out Lincoln Riley for that guy. Look, at some point, depth is going to come into play. And if you're a guy like Caden Durham and you're expecting to play a lot right off the bat, and you have some guys that are already kind of entrenched into the role, you've got at least one guy from the 23 class that's still in play there, and you've got a number of guys, upperclassmen, plus the ones already coming in for this class when you start Stevenson, and then obviously, like we said, Taylor Tatum. At what point are you going to get the amount of touches that a guy like this wants? Plus, you throw in there the fact that they're one of the top track programs in the country. It makes sense. I mean, Coach was talking about it on our show when we brought this up. Do you expect to lose some of these guys to the transfer portal because of that? Yeah, you do. Because there's just not enough footballs to go around, and this is not going to be a run it 70 times a game, 1979 Oklahoma Sooner team. That's not what they're going to do. They're going to throw it, and there's going to probably be more balance than what you've seen in the past, but they're going to run the football. That being said, there's still not going to be enough carries for everybody to stay happy. So you have to hope that, be happy with what you got. Jay, you were talking earlier this year about one of the guys being a, GOAT possibility, and he's a 3-star, right? And then you get the number 1 guy in the country. I mean, it's been an embarrassment of riches for Oklahoma in that room, and I think that it's at some point it's going to top off, and there's no way that you can continue bringing in these guys left and right. I think that the biggest thing was he's an Oklahoma kid, and
yeah,
so you hoped that you would get him, and I think that was the whole talk of that group of guys, that we've talked about, that they all wanted to play together, but circumstances dictate different things for different kids, I think. I think you're muted there, Chris.
Yep, you snapping.
So what I was gonna say is I think Hank had a comment up here that basically Essentially it says what we're saying, and then I think it says what everybody on this panel is going to say as well. I wasn't surprised about CD, but Simmons caught me by surprise. No. So Couz, I'm going to go straight to you. I mean, this is Texas. I there's nobody on this panel that likes Texas. Maybe you do.
No.
We don't like Texas at all. So
Couz ain't no
bring you in. I don't want you just to seem like you're just a stranger to the topics. You know what's going on. You're in the know. What's your thoughts about this? About Texas finally winning a battle like this right here to get a kid like Simmons, 5-star, all world. It's exactly what they need, and they have a huge need for defensive linemen.
Means absolutely zero until they start winning conference titles again. I'm just being frank with you. I mean, they do this. They go out and get these 5-star guys every year, and they do zero with it. I mean, I'm just being honest.
What?
I love that.
I mean, Couz is not wrong. Like we say this every year about Texas. Someone dropped me a list of every year their rankings and stuff. I mean, you can go on to College Football Sports Reference, and it will show you where Texas started each year and how they finished. We need that start to go with the finish. Luckily, this year they're not ranked very high as far as the coaches poll. They've got them 12th.
Yeah,
which is kind of shocking. It's not bad, but it's also not what Texas was thinking. I mean, they got us at 19?
Mm-hmm.
There you go. But yeah, that's what I was thinking about Hank too the entire time. When I saw that, I was like, man, him and Hill. Oh God, Anthony Hill is already absurd. Mm-hmm. You put Simmons on the opposite side. Jesus, it might not be fair, but we'll see if PK's defense is any good when it comes to that.
So what about without Patterson? What if Patterson doesn't end up back in that role that he played last year? Do they take that step that you hope that they would if you're a Texas fan?
Jason, that's the biggest recruiting battle that they're trying to win right now, is trying to get him back. I mean, they pitched just about everything from what I can tell to try to get Gary Patterson back.
Topher got it. Yeah.
But I mean, look, I'll say this right here, and y'all know how I feel about Texas. I'll step out and just say this right here. It's a great pickup. It's a great addition to their class. It's a great addition to their team.
Okay.
I'm hopeful that like I told Nick last night on the SEC Connect, y'all, if you haven't checked that out, check us out at the SEC Connect. Try getting that off the ground right now.
Great episode.
We talked about that, and I told him, I said, hey, you guys do have a dog out there. Colton Vasek. Vasek is going to be that guy, but Vasek has to put the weight on, or whatever the case may be. Whatever they're doing to try to get him to go to kind of expedite his weight gain or whatever it is, so he could get on the field and actually play and be a factor. That is that's what they have to do. But they got a dog over there, and they got a kid, that can line up opposite of this Colin Simmons kid, and they can possibly get it on. But hey, we still have to see what they're going to be able to do.
In all seriousness, though, I mean, what I said earlier, I mean, it is a great pickup. I don't want to minimize it. For them to get a guy, that could have went to Alabama or Auburn or these other SEC schools. Yeah, any of them. I mean, he could probably went to anywhere he wanted. And so, I mean, it's a big get, and especially as they get it ready to transition into the conference.
Yeah,
they need that. They're going to need all the 5-star guys they can get, and so yeah. I mean, I think it's a big pickup for them. We can talk all the trash we want to, but at the end of the day, they won this battle on the trail, man. So we got to give them kudos for it.
But Couz,
at least they have for now. He hasn't signed yet, but it looks like they will.
So this is what I was going to say, Couz, and just tell me if I'm wrong on this. I feel like the entire state of Texas, as far as college football, I feel like the entire state of Texas is in a show me state. Texas A&M showed me that all this talent that you've accumulated, this coaching that you supposedly have, this top tier coaching, even though we kind of think those relationships are kind of souring, show us that you guys can go out there and actually dominate the SEC, and not just when everybody's down in a COVID year or in a weird year like the COVID year. Texas, Couz said it best, shows you can win at least a Big 12 championship. Nobody's even saying national championship,
No.
Big 12 championship, win the Big 12 championship on your way out, and then we'll take you more serious, you know. And then TCU, it's show me, can you repeat? You know, you have your coaches popping off about our wide receiver core is going to be better than it was last year. You have certain, you know, certain things that they're saying, and so I feel like, okay, well, show me you can do it again, you know. And Houston, I feel like those are kind of the four big teams right now. Houston, you're just like, I mean, show me something, you know, like Dana going there. I was like, man, that's gonna be a thorn in a lot of people's side, because when Dana Holderson when everything is right, Dana Holderson is a damn good coach. He's one of the better coaches in college football in the nation. But when
the offensive side of the ball,
yeah, well, when things are going south, oh my gosh,
yeah.
You know, but I would say, you know, like UTSA is just like, hey, keep doing what you're doing. That's all that I'm asking for. SMU, we're going to get to see them up close and personal and see what they have. It's going to be, you know, yet again, you know, year two, I guess, of their new era or whatnot. But no, I feel like at least those top tier teams in Texas are what you would call top tier, at least in TCU, Texas, and Texas A&M. You're kind of feeling like they're in a show me state, like, hey, you got to show me, you know, in your own respective way.
Well, and even Baylor, I think you could even throw Baylor in there.
Baylor, I forgot about Baylor.
You got Aranda. I mean, Dave Aranda, Dave Aranda is a very respected coach. Everybody talks about how great of a coach he is, and I don't disagree with that necessarily. But, you know, 2 years ago when they won the Big 12, we can't overlook the fact, you know, I think they had 9 NFL draft picks or something that year.
Yeah.
Guess who recruited all 9 of those guys? Matt Rule did.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and yes, Dave Aranda won with him, so I'm not saying he's terrible, but can he now? And then last year they disappointed at 6-7. I think what their final record was. Can they come out this year and win 8-9 games and get back, you know, to looking like the Baylor, or at least close to the Baylor of 2 years ago with Dave Aranda's guys? That's what I want to see.
How much of that was Joey McGuire? You know, how much of that was Joey McGuire being the assistant head coach?
Great point. Yeah,
I forgot Texas Tech. I don't know why I was forgetting Texas Tech, but I feel like T Tech. It's like I said with the Oregon stuff. Show me that the hype is real. Show me that you guys, you know, show me that the hype is real. Honestly,
yeah. Dana made a comment in an interview not long ago that and this is absurd in my opinion, but now they could prove me wrong, but he said that this might be the best receiving core he's had ever. And all he's got to do is go back a few years, and he's had Tavon Austin, Stedman Bailey, both guys who went in it. Tavon Austin was a first-round draft pick. Stedman Bailey was a third-round NFL draft pick. They were on the same team. Gary Jennings and David Seals were both NFL draft picks on the same team. So how can he say now, unless this Houston receiving room is absolutely, you know, unless he's got 3 or 4 first-round picks in there, how can he say that with a straight face? We'll see.
Kind of sound like Couz got a little something against he
will not. He hasn't said anything positive about West Virginia since he left. So,
yeah, that relationship went south quick. Him leaving West Virginia was kind of one of the weirdest exits that I had seen from afar. I was like, I don't really get what was going on. I never heard anything about him being on the hot seat, even when he had bad seasons.
Yeah, I think it just wasn't a good fit. He was hired under a different regime.
Yeah.
And the new regime, I don't think liked his antics, his style. Gordon Gee likes a football coach who's more professional, more polished, more CEO type guy as far as the way they conduct themselves. That's not Dana Holgorsen. Dana Holgorsen likes to throw headsets. He likes to yell F-bombs. He likes to scream, yell, all that stuff. Which I could care less about that. I don't mind a coach that shows energy on the sidelines.
I need more of that in my life.
Me too.
And he liked to party. He was single. You know what I mean? He just Neil Brown's a family man. He's buttoned up. You know what I mean? He's a church going guy. He's the type of coach that Gordon Gee would prefer. And I just don't know if there was. I don't think they were all on the same page. Just to be honest with you. And he had an opportunity to go to Houston, which is a city he had even made public statements that he wished he had never left because he loved it there. Mm-hmm. He loves the city. He said he regretted leaving Houston to go to Oklahoma State. So, there was some of that too. But so a little bit of everything. But yeah, it wasn't really necessarily his lack of performance as it was just it wasn't a good fit. The two
It's
sides
funny.
just didn't see eye to eye, and I think he wanted an extension too. And
Yeah.
I don't think they felt like he deserved an extension.
It's funny here. Chicken mentions Baylor missing Joey McGuire, and y'all been talking about that. But did y'all not see that Baylor picked up Ed Orgeron? Like, come on, baby. We got Coach O.
No, shut up.
Bears.
So was he
Go
actually on the
Bears.
staff, or was he just watching practice?
He's wearing a Baylor shirt. I'll just say that. So there's he's probably an analyst, most likely, is what they probably did. Because remember, Aranda worked for Orgeron
Right.
at
LSU.
LSU, so
Right.
I can anticipate that Orgeron's there as an analyst, just helping out or
So-
what. And Orgeron's not a bad position coach. Remember that.
No.
So you're
He was
telling me
really good
Orgeron's
at
next
USC.
take- You're telling me his next position is going to be at Alabama as an analyst to revitalize his career.
No, I don't think he'll ever end up at Alabama.
I
I'm gonna
think,
be honest.
That's
That's
Never
one of the few teams.
never
he won't-
say
Out of
never.
town.
I think a perfect cracker. He said his son is a coach on the team.
Thank you, Chris. Figured that somebody knew. So I'll say this: if there's a place for him, I think I wouldn't mind if BV just called him and brought him in as an analyst. Orgeron knows what he's doing.
The
He
match
just
made
he
in
just
heaven
he
was-
just likes to go through young women.
Gary Patterson would have been a match made in heaven. But moving on to our last subject, we got to talk about this. But before we do that, hey everybody, if you're in here, hit that like button, subscribe, not only just to this channel, but to everybody's channel on here. PG Show, Unfair Sports, Couz's Corner, Hall of Fame podcast. Definitely hit everybody up. So that being said, PG, we're coming to you, and we're gonna talk realignment, man. And the question that I had on here that I sent to everybody is simply this: did the Big 12 save itself with the new additions?
Oh, I mean, I think they definitely saved themselves because they're not going to be in the position where the Pac-12 is, where you're just not going to be a conference anymore. You're not going to exist. But I need to see what the Big 12 product is going to be without OU and Texas, because at this point, you don't have any big brands in this conference, but you have schools that can build themselves into big brands over 20 years, right? I'm talking any of these Texas schools. And I say that because the state of Texas is so rich in talent. If you're a Texas school and you have the chance to dominate your conference and, potentially vie for college football playoffs, maybe you can now try to swing 5-star guys that were going to go to a Texas because they were atop of the Big 12 and, one of the most sexy Big 12 teams. I don't know. I think a Texas team could be up there, any one of those guys. UCF intrigues me a lot just because they're already doing things on the recruiting trail. And I think being in the state of Florida, again, like Texas, another state that is rich in 5-star talent, if you just start to land one of those guys every couple of years and you're starting to attract that kind of attention, I think that could bring you up. And if you're winning the conference 3 out of 5 years, I think you're calling yourself good at that point. But I think the Big 12, they're still a Power 5 conference. They're the 4th conference at this point. I thought they really needed to get Oregon and Washington in there to kind of help re-solidify the brand names that they lost in OU and Texas, because I think I saw a thing on it. Wasn't it they even still not with the teams they got in losing OU and Texas? They're still short $275 million or something like that on their rights. I mean, the number's absolutely insane.
So I'll jump back in here and I'll just say that, hey, I agree with you, PG. It's one of those things where it's a damn good move, but I'm still not there to say it's great. So I'm gonna jump over everybody and I'm gonna go to Couz. I want to get Couz's opinion about this, because I know we've all talked about this at so much, even before all of this happened, about some of these teams that they needed to go get. But Couz, what's your thoughts? Did the Big 12 save itself? And then if you could sprinkle in a little bit of a kind of, where does West Virginia fall on this? And are you wanting West Virginia to get out? Or are you thinking that this is a great chance for West Virginia to kind of make that step and possibly take over the Big 12?
Yeah, I think first off, to answer the question about saving, I think they did save themselves at least for the next 5 to 6 years. until the next round of realignment comes, assuming this one's over. Obviously, this one may not be over. But yeah, I think they saved themselves for now, for sure, by jumping ahead of the Pac-12 in line on the TV deal, by picking all 4 of their teams. And kudos to Brett Yormark. The guy has done every single thing he said he was going to do, and he did it. A lot of people didn't think he could, but yeah, and so I trust his leadership, and I do think going forward, there's an argument now who's third, ACC or Big 12. I don't know. Who knows? It's fun to debate people on it, right? At the end of the day, we're probably pretty close. They have better brands than we do. I mean, they've got Florida State, they've got Miami, they've got Clemson. But from a competitive standpoint, top to bottom, I think the Big 12 is definitely up there because there's not really one team that's going to dominate this league, at least not now.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as West Virginia goes, I mean, obviously, I want what's best for the conference because we need to be in a conference that still has a seat at the Power 5 table or Power 4 table now, I guess, and that helped that. But at the same time, here we are, we're over here on this side of the country, and we keep adding all these teams from over here on this side of the country, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. But you got to do what you got to do, I guess. Mm-hmm. I would love to see them get some East. I was on the UConn bandwagon myself, and a lot of people weren't.
And you should be.
But I mean, UConn's a good brand, man, especially when you look at basketball. And I think if you give them resources in football, they can be competitive. They're not going to win the conference a lot, but they can compete. I mean, we had Kansas in the league and Iowa State in the league. They were terrible for decades.
Right.
So having a team that's bad at football in your conference is not a deal breaker, if they bring a lot of other things to the table, which I think UConn does. But if we can get some more Eastern teams in the league, I would be much happier. But as far as whether West Virginia should leave or not, no, I don't think they should leave. I think the ACC is right now skating on thin ice themselves with all this rumors about Florida State, stuff, people potentially leaving. And two, why go to a league, if we even had a chance to go, why go to a league that may fall apart again anyway? And two, I think culturally, honestly, we fit more in the Big 12 culturally than we do in the ACC anyway. We have a lot of like-minded schools, similar cultures. Similar university missions, things like that, man. And our fan base has been really accepted and endeared by the Big 12 fans. And I just think that I think we fit right in everywhere except geography. If we can get that ratified, I think we're in a perfect spot.
Have we thought of lifting the state up and moving them?
I think that the Pac-12 was thinking that was what was going to happen, right?
Yeah,
because that's how they were fighting it tooth and nail, was acting like Utah was going to have to go post up in East Dallas or something.
Mm-hmm.
So,
dream scenario for us West Virginia fans is and I hate to say this, for the ACC to fall apart and for us to get Pitt or Virginia Tech or North Carolina State or some teams that are closer to us and form an Eastern wing or an Eastern pod of the Big 12. That would be the dream scenario for us right now.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'm going to add to this Big 12 thing. One thing that I think they did really well was I think they were able to maintain some rivalries and honestly bring some annual rivalries in that we haven't really seen in a while. Like, I think Utah and BYU is going to be one of those rivalries that everybody watches every year. It's just going to be a fun rivalry to watch. So I think if the Big 12 can, with West Virginia, maybe you try to cannibalize and bring Pitt into the conference, bring their rivals in here, make yourself the conference of rivalries and make that your allure every year for media rights and things like that, because the rivalries are always going to be on TV.
Yeah.
I agree. Go ahead, Jason. You guys go.
I was just going to, there's a lot to unpack with all that. What I would tell you is, I think the main thing, and something I've seen this throughout Big 12 winning with basketball, and people want to minimize that, but moving forward, if you're going to remain relevant, because except for, there's a caveat to this, but I think that obviously Brett Yormark knows that he has to sell basketball. He comes from a basketball background with being the CEO of Barclays Center, right? Yep. He definitely knows what he's doing when it comes to putting things together that puts butts in the seats. The thing is that obviously football is king right now. And, they haven't sold basketball for all this time, which is the weirdest thing in the world to me. When the NCAA tournament does the numbers it does, for you to just give away your basketball during the season is just, it amazes me that nobody's figured this out up until this point. right? So I expect that that's definitely going to change as you go. And if you start looking at the brands in this league with basketball, I mean, I think that with Huggy Bear, losing Huggy Bear probably hurts West Virginia, and but to some extent. But I mean, if they're mid-tier in this league, then that's unreal, because you start looking at K-State just got into the Final Four. Kansas has won a couple of championships in the last 5 years. Baylor's won a championship. Texas Tech's been in the championship game. Then now they just added Houston and Arizona, perennial number 1 seeds in the tournament. There's no way that you can call the Big 12 irrelevant. I don't give a shit what you want to say with football. You cannot call this league irrelevant now. You can't do it. Do they need to do some stuff in football? Yeah, but I think that you have added some brands that's going to allow you to, what did we talk about this whole time, Couz? That the most important thing in college football is what? It's getting eyes on it by what? Getting rivalries. Yep. Rivalries are the most important thing. It's not the size of the market or any of that crap. It's rivalries. Mm-hmm. I feel like the Big 12 ought to be pushing Oklahoma State to make Oklahoma an annual game again, because they'll get to share in it every other year in the revenue and stuff. But they're not, I mean, whether or not they're going to do that or not, I don't know. But if you're Brett Yormark, you've been able to talk everybody into everything else. I don't know why you wouldn't want that rivalry as well. You need to continue to try to pull off of this old bit. And I mean, the fact that Oklahoma is a former Big 12 member starting next year, I don't know why that wouldn't work out. I think we know damn sure why Okie Light doesn't want to play the game. Gundy's 3-16. I don't know another place in America that you could approach 3-16 against anyone and still have your job. But I digress.
Let me. I was gonna go to Jay. Jay, what's your thoughts, man?
Everybody's basically said it. One thing the Big 12 needs to do is focus on the fact that they are a great basketball conference, which I think they are. Hence why the UConn conversation really came into play. Probably wasn't first because of football. It was mainly because of their hoops. And why not? Arizona, UConn, Oklahoma State, Baylor, Tech. I mean, hoops is legit in the Big 12. And I'm going to be excited. Yeah, I'm going to be excited about watching basketball, especially March Madness and the conference tourneys right before March Madness, because the Big 12 is going to be elite. I mean, ACC struggling right now because UConn and Duke replaced their legendary coaches. So right now, premier basketball, Big 12's got it. They're owning it. So adding UConn would do nothing but add to that allure. Outside of that, I love how the Big 12 came from the dead, rose up, and put a spear through the chest of the Pac-12, of the Pac in general.
But it's nothing that we have not been saying for the past, I want to say 6 months, Jay, on Ty's show, Jason's show, your show, PG's show, my show. We've said it the entire time. Why are you not going after Louisville? Why are you not going after South Florida? Why are you not going after Cal or Stanford or teams like that to put yourself in the midst of all these big teams who are fighting over all these 5 stars and stealing all this? You know how it is. You can go to Dallas and get you a lot of low 3-star, mid 4-star kids that turn out to, honestly, if they were anywhere else, probably be 5 stars. You get what I'm
keep
saying?
This in mind, right? No, I get you. But
go ahead.
Keep this in mind, though. This is why I talk about the Big 12 coming up, taking the spear, stabbing it through the Pac, because the Pac had the opportunity of any conference. They could have killed the Big 12. The Big 12 should have been dead because of them, but they refused to do it because they pulled how can I say this in a nice way? They pulled a Lincoln Riley and they took the foot off the gas. Yeah. That's what they did. And let me explain to y'all why. So
that's a great way.
Earlier today, I dropped just my Unfair Sports podcast, full hour show, a 40-minute show. You can check it out on the channel. And one thing I talked about on there was how the reason why the Pac-12 is dead is because of Nebraska. Now, let me take y'all back in the time machine and how this worked. 2010, Nebraska decides to go to the Big Ten. They were tired of the Longhorns and the fact that the Longhorn Network was created. It wasn't equal with the TV deals at the time. Cool. They bounce. The Pac offered Colorado, got them. They invited Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Texas, Texas A&M, and there was 2 other schools that they invited. Now, this is what was fascinating about that. Oklahoma waited with Texas to decide if they wanted to go, and the Pac-10 at the time did not want to up the ante to bring them into the conference. By them not doing that, Oklahoma and Texas kept the Big 12 going, pulled in West Virginia, basically dissolved the Big East, brought in TCU, and from there, the Big 12 got smart and said, next TV deal, we're going to beat the Pac, we're going to beat the SEC, and we're going to beat the Big 10 in negotiation. We're going to go do it first. That way, if we got it locked, because the ACC's deal was awful, so they didn't worry about them. But they get a good deal beating the SEC and the Big 10. They were guaranteed to shut out the Pac, because the Big 10 was going to get a good deal. The SEC was going to get a good deal. The Big 12 beat them at their own game, and now look at the Pac. They're dead. So shout out to the Big 12 for being smart and saying, we're not going to lose to you people. We're going to win. Y'all left us for dead, and guess what we did? We rised up and now got 14 teams. 16.
I don't
Almost
think
18.
Yeah, and I don't think that it could be overstated how dead the Big 12 was when Oklahoma and Texas decided to leave. All it really would have taken was any one of a number of things that they screwed up with the Pac-12 to go ahead and drive that stake through the heart of the Big 12. George Kliavkoff and those conference presidents were not able to do it. They wouldn't bring themselves to do it, and it was all because of what? Hubris. Period. That's all it was. It was all this that they don't belong and they're not as good as us. It's the same thing that you saw. I mean, you think about Utah and how loud they've been throughout this process about not wanting to be a part of the truck stop conference and all that kind of stuff. But the truth of it is that if GK was half of the commissioner and a forward thinker that you've got in Brett Yormark here, then it would be the Big 12 that's dead, because any number of things could have just finished them off, and they refused to do it. There were 4 schools ready to leave immediately upon OU and Texas making the announcement to go to the SEC. 4 schools that were immediately ready to leave. All they have to do is make that addition. It's the Big 12, not the Pac that's dead. And then the merger talk. Go ahead, Couz.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. The Pac could have had BYU years ago.
Yep.
But
Absolutely.
because of their religious beliefs, they didn't want to bring them in.
Yeah.
And that alone might have saved them. I mean, they're not a Texas or Oklahoma, but they're a big brand. I mean, they've got a national following, international following, really, if you think about it. I mean, there's just so many missteps. I mean, you can name one after the other over the years that has led to their downfall and total mismanagement.
And the same thing you say about that is the same thing that you could say for Big 12 losing OU and Texas, when OU and Texas have been begging them to basically expand and do certain things that they're doing now for the longest. Big 12.
Whoa. I was under the impression that Texas and Oklahoma were the ones that stopped them from expanding in 2016 when they tried to get Cincinnati and BYU in the conference.
Oklahoma was the one that vetted all these new schools to come in.
I think it was Texas. I think it was Texas, actually, not Oklahoma.
I could totally see Texas doing that. That's
I've heard that
from their ethos.
I've heard that Texas stopped that from happening. That I actually think Oklahoma was for it. I read an article the other day, or maybe it was Twitter. Somebody put out a tweet that Oklahoma was actually for expansion in 2016. Mm-hmm. Texas stopped it. Is what I have. I don't know how accurate that is, but
I mean, at one point in time, now don't get me wrong, I don't know how strong the talks were, but one point in time, you were talking to Louisville, you were talking to Florida State, you were talking to Memphis, you were talking to a bunch of teams, a bunch of schools that were interested in the Big 12. How this entire, back in the day, back in like the day. The biggest news, honestly, was when the Big East basically dissolved overnight, for however long they did. They took that, honestly, it was just a small little hibernation period or a little hiatus for them. But my point is simply this, is that was the big thing. This could have shook everything if they were able to take Florida State and all the rest of that. The Big 12 had a chance to really put a grip on college football and shake it up back then, but you didn't see it. the Pac-12 had a chance to shake it up as well. Why? Because they were talking to OU and Texas and Oklahoma State and a couple of other teams from the Big 12 too.
Tech and TCU also. Yep.
Yes. So the Pac-12 and even the Big 12 to an extent, but definitely the Pac-12, a lot of missteps have been made, not only in the last few months and the last few weeks, but in probably the last decade. There's been a lot of missteps that have been made.
Jay, I would ask you this: what you think about this is? I feel like it all started when Baylor and TCU tied for the conference championship. There wasn't an actual game to play to give them, and what they didn't have enough tiebreakers to break it, and so we didn't get a team into the playoff when you would have had one of those two teams in there. I mean, you look at Baylor that year; they were unbelievable on offense, and then of course TCU was unbelievable on defense.
Yeah.
So this is a year that you miss out on that, and at that point already, who was the guy from Oklahoma that did all the vetting for those guys? They had all four of these teams that are now part of the league this year that were vetted by Oklahoma and approved by the league to come in, and Bowlesby continued to sit on his hands. Yeah,
Bowlesby was slow playing a lot. Yeah,
he was
so reactive instead of proactive, and people get sick of it. People get sick of it.
Think about it this way. I mean, the Big 12 stayed with 10 teams for a lot longer than they should have. They could have been back to 12 right when they started losing teams. Like, that was the biggest problem. It's like, okay, you could have easily transitioned out. And I forgot to mention Cincinnati, even with basketball. You could have transitioned into a Big 12 and started going for schools out there by West Virginia. Could have. Louisville would have been perfect to go snatch up. Not too far. You know what I'm saying? You could have worked on that the entire time and kept the conference at 12 teams. So you could have had a conference championship game because, yes, it sounds great that every team plays each other at least once. But that doesn't work out when at the end of the season you got two teams tied for the
anyways. They ended up changing it to a conference game anyway.
They had to after the debacle with TCU and Baylor. You have no choice. You got to have a outright winner that without waiting for tiebreakers, so that the playoff committee can't lie to you and say, well, if we put this team in there, they're going to complain. We put this team there, they're going to complain. We had to go ahead and blah. You eliminate that. You eliminate all of that.
It was a marketing nightmare, PR nightmare, because
their
slogan, if I'm not mistaken, was one true champion. Was it not?
Yeah.
And then they had two champions. So it was like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, dude. It's like the no new taxes thing from the first Bush. That was the stupidest thing ever, because then as soon as he raised taxes, he made it 4 years and gone. It's just that kind of same stupid stuff that you're that loud about it and then you don't get it done. And you see that the Pac-12 has made all those missteps. But all I would say is if Brett Yormark is the commissioner even 3 or 4 years ago, then OU and Texas probably are still in the league. I think Kim brought up a good point of, OU has traditionally hated that 11 o'clock game, right? They don't like that daytime game. They wanted to play a lot of these night games. Texas is kind of the same way, where if you could have had a couple of these night games, that they probably would have hung around with it too. Bowlesby wouldn't even go to Fox about making those adjustments and stuff. And the same way that people talk about that Kliavkoff's biggest failure was not going to USC and saying, what do you need? And I think that was part of Bowlesby's biggest problem too, is that he just assumed that he was doing what was right for the Blue Bloods in the conference. Whether or not you agree with catering to them or not is not the point. If you wanted to keep them around, you kind of need to cater to them, at least on little things like that. And then don't make the conference look stupid by not having a championship game because you don't have enough for two divisions.
Yeah. Good point.
When you talk to Big 12 people, West Virginia not being in the conference at that time, I'm not as well versed on that time period, but almost everybody that I've heard talk about this issue from 2010, it all comes down to that all these schools left, Nebraska, A&M, they all left because of the Longhorn Network. Is that
true? Yep.
So, but here's the
100%.
thing. But if you don't do the Longhorn Network, Texas is going to leave.
Yeah.
Right? Basically.
If you don't allow them to do that, they're probably going to try to find a way to bounce. And pull Oklahoma in there with them.
So we can all bash Bowlesby.
Where were they going to go with the Longhorn Network? Who was going to allow them to have it? Because the Pac didn't. That's why the Pac backed out of the deal with Oklahoma and them too.
Well, yeah, but they might not go. But if nobody's going to let them have it, then they might just go to whoever's paying them the most money or whatever.
True.
Or they go independent. They would have no problem
what
being
I mean?
independent.
So I think they felt desperate to do that. So I can kind of say, I know we can bash Bowlesby, and yeah, he made some bad decisions, but that would have been a tough situation. You can either try to save your top money making program, or you can risk letting them walk. But then you risk losing others. So would you rather lose Texas or Nebraska? I think they just decided they would rather lose Nebraska,
Which was a smart move.
Not enough dogs out there, man. That's what it was. We didn't have them that dog that was a go getter. But I'll say this right here, y'all. We've been going 1 hour and 9 minutes. Last thing that we're going to do. All right. Not honestly, just be brief. Kind of just this is what I want you to do. No explanation needed on this one. We're about to end the show. Just tell me, 1, who wins the Big 12 this year? And then 2, give me your surprise team out of the pack that could be the K-State or TCU that could shock everybody and make the Big 12 championship, let alone win it.
Who's going?
Couz, let's start with you.
All right.
The guest in there first.
I'm picking Kansas State to win the conference.
I hate you already.
In my
Fair
long
choice,
shot, to surprise people, I think I'm going to have to go. Now, you said surprise and actually compete for the conference championship?
Yeah.
Okay. I would say Oklahoma State. Y'all are going to kill me, I know.
Oh, wow. Invite revolt.
Fired.
Hey, hey, look, man. Jason knows this. I think Mike Gundy's a fantastic football coach, so I'm going with Oklahoma State.
All right, Jason, we'll go with you.
Oh my Lord. Yeah, I do know what you think.
I'll see myself out.
I'm trying to fix you. I'm trying to fix you on this, man. I've been trying to help you, trying, and you're just not listening. They're trash. They're not gonna. Everybody that's listening to Okie Like Cody tell you to smash the over on on Oklahoma State. Stop listening to that madness, because it is madness. They're gonna freaking win 5. Okay, that's crazy talk. All right, who's gonna win the conference championship? I would tell you that I think that if you look at the rosters and what they look like, it should be Texas, or it should be Oklahoma. I don't know that they're going to allow that to happen. I mean, you've even heard, a lot of shows are going around saying it's not good. It's not a good look for the Big 12 for either one of those schools to win on the way out. It doesn't help the Big 12 whatsoever.
No,
we saw that there was just one holding call against a conference opponent for Oklahoma. There was 3 against a Texas opponent last year. I mean, that's just real. That's just real. So you can say whatever you want about that. I don't know that they allow it. Talent-wise, they should be there. There's no way that I would. I mean, I do agree with one thing on Couz is that K-State's going to be right in the mix of this thing the whole way. Chris Kleiman's a hell of a coach. I think that Will Howard proved that he can take this team and take it to big heights. Look, as much as everybody loved what Max Duggan did in that Big 12 championship game, running up and down the sideline, almost killing himself, he got his ass beat by Will Howard. So did they lose? They lost Deuce. But, they're bringing in another good running back. And I think that defensively they're going to do what they do. I like that team to probably get in there. I think that's going to be them. And OU's going to end up playing them because they're going to play them in the conference championship game. If there was another, I guess you could call it a dark horse, but I don't know that I think of it at this point. I think Texas Tech has got to be the next one in line for this season. If anybody else is going to do it, they can go in and knock Texas out by beating them at home. They've got, we're going to find out a lot about them. I think you're right. In week 2 against Oregon, we're going to find out a lot about this team. Is Tyler Shuck able to stay healthy the whole season too? He hadn't done that yet. So we're going to find out
for the last 4 or 5 years.
Right. But listen, they've got nothing but Elite 11 talent in that room. Right.
Oh, I know.
And as we said, I feel like Joey McGuire is the biggest reason that Baylor won the conference championship 2 years ago. I really do. I don't know that it was about, and I don't want to diss Aranda. I don't want to diss him. I think he's a good coach, but I don't think he's Joey. So I think that when you have, and they've upgraded their facilities, they're working towards that. They're dumping some money into their offensive line. They're doing some smart things at
Their
Texas.
NIL game is
Their NIL
top-notch.
game is right there, right? And and the fact that Joey McGuire was in the, I don't think that you can stress this enough. The fact that he was the president of the Texas High School Coaches Association bodes very, very well for Texas Tech. That is similar to being the head coach at Texas when it comes to knowing everybody and having the respect of everybody else in there as far as high school coaches are concerned. So I think that they could be a year out, but I wouldn't be all that surprised if they snuck in there and got a place at the table also.
I got you. Jay?
All right, so based on, I'm gonna go ahead and follow Vegas. The Big 12 championship will be a rematch of the Red River. The winner of the Red River will lose in the championship game. So just take that as you want, but it won't be a sweep of both. One will lose, and both teams will lose against each other, and that's what the championship game is gonna look like. My dark horse, Kansas. Jalen Daniels stays healthy. Whew. They're a lot tougher than people want to give them props for, man. Hey,
He's a baller.
Dog.
See, I had to be here just for a second because I was like, what?
Dark horse is there. I don't think Tech or K-State are dark horses. I think both of them will compete. They're supposed to compete. They're built to compete. I think if you're going to go dark horses, it's going to either be Kansas or honestly West Virginia. I mean, I know that there's struggles in the coaching realms and making those decisions. And I'm not saying it's because Couz is here. I've been thinking about that with Garrett Green this whole time. I'm like, he's a baller. I've watched him ball out. If they just put the right pieces around him and make sure everybody executes, West Virginia could shock us. But I think Kansas, Jalen Daniels is the monster. I'm sorry. Period.
West Virginia got to if they're gonna play Green, they gotta let him rip. They can do the QB run game. They can run the slants. They can do the whole let's control the possession game. Let's win that battle.
Yep.
But they gotta let him rip it. They gotta let him rip too. They gotta let him actually go down the field. But for me, like Kim said, like Chicken said, I'm going with my Boomer boys. I think we're back this year, and I think we're back. Not even necessarily a revenge tour, but I think it's just a road to redemption, honestly. And I think that my dark horse team, honestly, it probably would be Texas Tech, to be quite frank with you. I think that the hype train, all that they have, what they're trying to do, I think they have a great chance to make the Big 12 championship game. They could be that K-State or that TCU. I wouldn't necessarily say TCU, but I would say probably they could be that K-State. They
do have that many fifth-year, sixth-year seniors like TCU had last year.
They're versatile enough to be able to play you however they need to possibly win that game. So that being said, that is the Horns Down podcast, guys, for tonight. I'm going to go around and let everybody tell you where you can find them and their shows at. First, I'm going to say shout out to PG for popping up. Find him at the PG Show on YouTube, at the PG Show _ on Twitter. So definitely shout out to him for pulling up. Jason, go down the line. We'll go Jason, Couz, and then we'll end with you, Jay, and then we'll be out.
Jason Watkins, Hall of Fame College Football. You can find us at CFB-pod on YouTube. On Twitter, just at HOF. Let's see, JW-HOF on Twitter. I just changed that so I forget it all the time. And then you can just find us on the internet at hofmedia.us. Thanks for having me on, Chris.
Appreciate you, bro.
Yeah, my name is Justin Walker. You can find me at Couz's Corner, spelled COUZ''S on YouTube. At Couz's Corner Sports if you want to use go that route. Find me on Twitter at Couz206, just like it's showing on the screen there, scrolling along the bottom. And then, just look me up. I'm on Twitter a lot. If you want to find me, that's the best place to find me if you want to interact.
And Couz, don't be a stranger, man. We're going to do more episodes than just OUV West Virginia. Yeah. We got to do some more stuff, man, for sure.
Yeah, I've been wanting to collab with you, man, so I appreciate it. Appreciate you having me on.
Appreciate you.
You know me, Jay, Unfair Sports. Search for me on YouTube as well as wherever podcasts are downloaded and listen to. Definitely check out Couz. He's been covering this conference realignment stuff for like meticulously. So I've been watching his videos on that, man. So it's definitely get over there, check them out. Gives you the 4-on-1 on what's going down. And so, yeah, but you know where to find me. Chris, we'll be doing a lot of stuff together, especially as we prepare for the season and during the season. I'm pretty excited and stoked to get that bad boy going.
Hey, wait, real quick before we get out of here, we gotta congratulate Jay for hitting 10,000 subscribers.
Oh yeah, shout out to Jay. Shout out to Jay.
Right here.
Keep liking and subscribing, man. Let's get it up. Let's run those.
Let's go, baby. Run the numbers up, baby.
Let's run those numbers. All right.